One of the most enduring film franchises is the James Bond series. Since 1962, James Bond has kept us all spellbound with his daring missions, cutting-edge technology, and terrifying villains. There are many villains in James Bond's rogues gallery because the movie franchise has been for so long. While some of these villains are embarrassingly bad and have plots that have been mocked over time, others can be frightening and unsettling, intimidating, or downright terrifying. However, I know we'll both agree that Raoul Silva from the 2012 film Skyfall is the most chaotic supervillain of any Bond film ever and probably the most terrifying of all.
And one by one, we start eating each other.
Origin. First, let's dive deeper into this iconic Bond villain's origin story. Tiago Rodriguez was a former MI6 agent who specialized in cyber-terrorism and worked for M when she oversaw Station H in Hong Kong. His grandmother had a little island which he and his family would visit every summer. He relates during their first meeting with Bond. They learned that the island had developed a rat infestation that fed off the coconuts that were grown there on one of these visits. His grandmother caught all of them and put them in an oil drum, which then she sealed to keep them in. Rodriguez used this tale as a metaphor to explain what M transformed Bond and himself into. M illegally hacked into Chinese intelligence in the period before the handover of Hong Kong. In return for 6 other agents who had been detained, Rodriguez was given to the Chinese. By accidentally disfiguring himself by eating into a cyanide pill, he attempted suicide. With rotten teeth and collapsing left cheek, Rodriguez swore vengeance and hated M for his predicament. In order to learn the identities of undercover agents, Silva and Patrice take a flash drive containing names and whereabouts of NATO agents and publish them online. He then escapes with a virus from his laptop, infects MI6's defense system as Q attempts to decrypt it and retrieve the list. Escaping into the London Underground through the floor grate of the MI6's, he disguises himself as a policeman as Bond pursues him. In this film, James Bond teams up with Q and M to set up an electronic trail that only Silva can follow, while he drives M, using her as a bait, to his ancestral home in Scotland. The climax of the film sees James Bond's Aston Martin destroyed by Silva's henchmen in a gigantic fireball explosion, much to both his sadistic delight and anger at seeing it destroyed. Despite Silva's death, his plan is being accomplished as M later dies succumbing to her wounds on Bond's arms, much to Bond's dismay. Enough with the backstory. Now let's proceed in breaking down how Raoul Silva became the most terrifying villain ever in the Bond franchise. Look at this iconic monologue by Bond's adversary, Raoul Silva. Many might say this is a cliché stunt with too much blah 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 and doesn't seem relevant at all. But what I have noticed is that Raoul Silva demonstrates is just one scene how a good villain should challenge a hero. Here, the former MI6 agent Silva first confronts the captured 007. As we'll see, Silva adapts his strategy 4 separate ways as his face-off against Bond through identity, relationships, sexuality, and relevance. First up is identity. This is Silva's introduction to the film, and he makes an impact by sharing a personal story from his childhood. The story relays a deeper message. However, M, the boss of British intelligence, has created both himself and Bond. The 2 agents were molded into killers by her actions, and as a result, were also both damaged in similar ways. The story is the closest Silva comes to say in the old cliché line, "You and I are not so different." James is his person and refuses to accept that he could be manipulated. He's sure of his own skills and beliefs. Hearing this, Silva readjusts. Here he challenges Bond's relationship with M. Not only has Bond been manipulated by Silva, has pointed out how he's also lost a step in the game, a theme that overshadows the entire movie. Silva then goes on to his next strategy, sexuality, throwing the masculine physical, woman-loving Bond even further off his game within advance. When his move was dismissed by Bond, Silva quickly adapted again, dismissing any physical games to move smoothly into his final attack, relevance. What freedom does Bond being a workhorse for MI6? What use is Bond, a single man with the gun, when Silva can accomplish more in a few minutes with his computer? Despite several good points, Bond remains steadfast with his retorts. With Bond confidently saying, "Resurrection," Silva sets out to prove him wrong in the next scene. What makes Silva a dynamic and exciting opponent is his own belief in Bond and MI6. Villains are at their most compelling when they believe in their cause and offer a multitude of counterpoints against the hero. This one scene demonstrates the importance that a villain can challenge a hero in various ways, offering the audience insight into their motivations and creating tension to elevate the story. When it comes to acting, this guy in the film gives an almost flawless performance. Similar to how the Joker from the Batman franchise behaves, the character of Silva constantly switches between being simply pure evil and cunning. Raoul Silva is still the ideal psychopath, yet he also has the past of a top agent seeking vengeance. I honestly think Silva is amazing whenever I see him on screen. Nevertheless, Silva is such a fascinating villain who keeps on providing more throughout the film. He's not the kind of villain who seems static, and I think the movie actually shows us a lot of various aspects to him. When a villain constantly seems to be one step ahead of the heroes, it is a quality I appreciate in a character, and Silva certainly embodies that. I believe that every element of his plan was meticulously thought out and flawlessly carried out. Silva is also an absolute genius, and while it's one thing to assume that a character is intelligent, it's entirely different to actually witness it. Right from the start, we knew he was a pretty brilliant guy, most likely scored a B+ on the test. Silva, though, didn't even get a grade on the test because he went up to the teacher and was like, "Listen to me, man, all of these answers are wrong." That's how smart Silva is. Probably what makes him one of M's favorite agents. I love seeing Silva wreck just all of MI6 and just burn it all to the ground. It's really satisfying to watch just a villain kind of like just play all these people, man. All these people who thus far have been always on top of the game. Despite his intelligence, he still feels like a normal person and doesn't often let his emotions to affect him. But this only serves to increase his frightening potential. We can all be honest, guys, we've all been there, which makes him seem so real. We have all experienced a scenario in which we are engaged in a deadly battle inside a burning lodge in Scotland. I believe you understand what I mean, right? Moving on, like I said, every scene with Silva is a straight banger. The reason why Silva is so awesome is because he's so unlike all other villains in the Bond franchise. A lot of Bond's arch enemies are all kind of serious and like, yes, they make the occasional quip or something like that, but they're pretty serious for most of the part. Silva, though, this guy's just having a blast. I really get the feeling he's just having a good time watching his whole plan come true. He got this one scene right where James Bond is chasing Silva and then he sees him and goes, "Careful, Silva, I might not miss you next time." And then Silva goes, "Not bad, my boy James, not bad for a freaking idiot." And then he throws a train at him. What kind of villain does that? Raoul Silva, that's who. I believe Silva also shines in terms of the type of villain he is. Silva is essentially a great hacker, which makes him appear to be a novel antagonist in the Bond universe. I truly enjoy how it demonstrates the power of computers. Additionally, the bad guy gets points for winning, and villains always get points for achieving their objectives. Although his initial scheme is unsuccessful, he continues nevertheless. In a fit of emotion, he assaults Bond full force, and while it's not the perfect plan, he does succeed in killing M. I like that he doesn't have over-the-top plans, but it's actually just pretty simple. The guy is ruthless though, and he has no problem killing whoever and however many people he needs to accomplish his goal. That's when a villain is really scary. In my opinion, when they will do whatever it takes to accomplish their goal, those are the really creepy villains. It's kind of like he doesn't have to play by the social contract that Bond and all other characters have to play by. It's a really cool dynamic and he does a lot of evil that shows that yes, he's a villain. I must admit, I kinda sprinkle a little pinch of sympathy to him, but I also don't because he's a true villain. I also don't because in true villain fashion, he goes about things in a way that most sensible humans think is less messed up. It's a perfect way to balance that evil sympathetic dynamic, and he's all the better villain for it. Silva is a noteworthy villain because how unsettling he is. This antagonist also takes the most drastic steps to personally harm James Bond in ways that will have a long-lasting effect on our hero. He destroys Bond's childhood house with fire. He wrecks the traditional Aston Martin DB5. In London, he targets Bond's place of business. And most tragically, he is successful in killing M, Bond's mentor. He nailed his best villain thing mainly because he's willing to do anything just to make his plans work, even if it costs him his own life. Thanks for watching this video, everyone. I hope you liked it. Did I miss some points that make Silva a terrifying villain? Do you agree that Raoul Silva is Bond's most terrifying opponent? Please let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more videos.